From becoming a rock star at just 4 years old to a sellout show in Japan, this is the truth about what happened to Bruno Mars. Believe it or not, this short king isn't the artist you think he is, because not many people know that he was born in Honolulu, Hawaii. His name isn't even Bruno Mars, it's actually Peter Gene Hernandez. I knew it was too good to be true because that stage name of his is just way too cool. He was also raised by a family of musicians, which explains his overall talent for making bangers like 24K Magic, Just the Way You Are, and, of course, the song that made all our teenage hearts bawl our eyes out, Grenade. His dad was a Latin percussionist and his mother was a singer and dancer. He joined his family's band, the Love Notes, at the age of 4 and began performing on stage as the true rock star he is. No, seriously, little Bruno was dressed up as Elvis, and when he was around 6 or 7 years old, he made his first appearance on the big screen. Sure, this was an uncredited role because he was a little Elvis Presley impersonator in like half a scene, but he was still in a 1999 rom-com with Nicolas Cage and Sarah Jessica Parker. That's pretty big for a kid so little, and it also gave him the push to stardom. To pursue his dreams, he relocated to Los Angeles in the mid-2000s, where he struggled for a good chunk of the first decade. His talent as a songwriter and performer caught the attention of industry insiders, and he signed with Atlantic Records in 2009, which led to his mainstream success with his debut studio album titled Doo-Wops and Hooligans in 2010. This album had the hits I was talking about, Just the Way You Are and Grenade. Man, those songs are still bangers today. However, this was also the year that his fame got the best of him because, like any other rising rock star performing at sold-out shows and making big deals, he was arrested for drug possession. On the 19th of September, 2010, Bruno was arrested in Las Vegas at the Hard Rock Casino for carrying a certain powder that goes in your nose instead of on a cake. During his arrest, he told the police officer that what he did was foolish and that he never used drugs before. He then pleaded guilty to felony drug possession and made a deal stating that this little hiccup would be cleared from his criminal record as long as he stayed out of trouble for a year. A fine of $2,000 was paid, and he did 200 hours of community service. So basically your average celebrity arrest in the early 2010s. When recalling the incident in 2013, he said that he was young and in Vegas, and he wasn't thinking properly. He was topping charts and making a #1 record, so it's obvious that he'd be out doing dumb things under the influence. But here's where the juicy part comes along. Apparently, Mars lied to the officials about never engaging in the substance he was carrying, and the only reason he did so was because he was heavily under the influence. The legal trouble didn't end there because 2010 was just a nightmare for the poor guy. In March, he collaborated with Travie McCoy on his debut album, Lazarus for Billionaire, which was an instant hit. 4 years later, Demetrius Proctor filed a lawsuit. Not much is known of this Proctor person, but he came out of nowhere, claiming he owned the copyright to the music and lyrics since the 31st of March, 2011, even though Billionaire was released in 2010. He accused both McCoy and Mars of willful and intentional infringement of copyright and demanded the destruction of all copies of the recording. Information about this lawsuit was kept under wraps, so a lot of people chose to forget that anything happened. Trying to make a change in 2012, he released Unorthodox Jukebox, which carried his success as an artist. 2016 was the year of the summer hits because 24K Magic was being played on radio stations across the globe. It looks like history repeated itself because Mars faced more legal trouble with one of the more popular songs from 24K Magic. His single Uptown Funk with Mark Ronson was probably his biggest hit, but it also came with a ton of lawsuits for copyright infringement. Because of this, Bruno stayed away from the public eye, made fewer appearances, and released fewer hits. It wasn't until 2021 that he collaborated with Anderson .Paak to release their debut duo project, An Evening with Silk Sonic. But before talking about that timeless classic, let me tell you a bit about the controversy that funked up Bruno's whole world. Did it affect his career? Did he lose fans? Well, this track was on the Billboard Hot 100 for 14 whole weeks, so it obviously gained a lot of attention from the wrong people. 80s band Collage said that their song from 1983 called Young Girls bore a lot of similarities with Uptown Funk, and to be honest, if you listen to the first 5 seconds of that track, you'll know what I'm talking about. The lawsuit stated that many of the main instrumental attributes and themes of Uptown Funk are deliberately and clearly copied from young girls. The craziest part is that the first song on Unorthodox Jukebox is titled Young Girls. Fans thought that Bruno was being exposed for the fraud he is, and all that talent and success was obviously stolen from older bands that no one had heard of. But guess what? The story doesn't end here. Minder Music also accused Bruno of copyright infringement on behalf of the Gap Band and their song Oops, Upside Your Head, which was released in 1979. I wish these two lawsuits were all there was to it. La Strada Entertainment filed one against Mark Ronson for alleged infringement of Roger and Zapp's song More Bounce to the Ounce. Luckily, this was later dropped, so nothing really came out of it. In 2018, Mars and Ronson settled one of the 3 lawsuits for Uptown Funk. They came to an agreement with Collage, and reports say that there was no financial compensation at any point in the settlement. The nightmare was over for these 2 musicians. Or was it? In 2023, the track made it to the news again, but this time it involved BMG. They were accused of not paying the Gap Band royalties for their single, even though a deal was made in 2015. This time, neither Bruno nor Mark were involved in the legal trouble, but the fact that it still hit the headlines years after the dispute left a pretty bad mark on Bruno's career as an artist. So, back to his musical success. After 24K Magic and making a music video with Zendaya, he released a collaborative project called An Evening with Silk Sonic. This took the music industry by storm because everyone on Earth loved Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak. Furthermore, fans were tired of waiting for new music from their favorite artists who could do no wrong. Aside from the numerous copyright issues that they all choose to ignore, the album combined both artists' distinct styles into a nostalgic tribute to classic R&B, funk, and soul. It was as if you were listening to classics from the 80s and 90s. The standout track, Leave the Door Open, was just as big as his older work, and people fell in love all over again. Their Short King was back. The single also won the 2021 Grammy Award for Record of the Year, along with the Best R&B Performance Award. More recently, he concluded his one and only night tour in Japan, and to celebrate, he released a very quirky yet amusing video of him exploring Japan and its culture. There have been a bunch of clips from his performances on the internet, and one of the most iconic things he does that always gets the crowd screaming at the top of their lungs. While performing, he simply raises his arm for someone to throw a towel at him to wipe his sweat away. He does it with such suave, it's no wonder everyone adores the guy. Japan loves Bruno so much that fans dropped unofficial merchandise with Hello Kitty for fans to be more fashionable while representing their favorite artist. He even caught a Hello Kitty towel on stage and let out a smile so wide you'd almost forget the fact that he's 5'5". The quirky video that summed up his tour in Japan also gained much attention online. Usually, if an artist did something like this, they'd be bullied to the point of having their accounts disabled since he's too old to be doing this sort of stuff. But fans didn't care that Mars is pushing 40 because, like I said, this man can do absolutely no wrong whatsoever. Everyone loves him and will continue to love him and the timeless bangers he always releases. And so, from selling out in Japan of all places to being a rock star at just 4 years of age, this is the truth about what happened to Bruno Mars.